This is going to be a little different. I'm not going to be doing a video the way I normally would do on my main channel. This is going to go on the Nekosaurus channel, so no fan art at the beginning. But it is going to be a video response nonetheless to a video that is entitled Random Gaming Thought, Was the Wii U Crippled on Purpose? I am actually curious with the ideas here because I loved my Wii U. So let's see what we got.
Okay, people, here's a random gaming thought, and this is coming because the Wii U trends at least once a month now, and has done so for at least, I think, the last 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
I guess people are finally looking into it. Hey, enjoy what you can with it.
It might also be that, like, every now and again, every month or so, we get a game that was locked on the Wii U that moves over to the Switch. Whether it be, like, Bayonetta or Wonderful 101 or anything like that, like, when those games get ported over to the Switch, the Wii U does tend to be a mode of conversation again.
But this makes me go back to thinking, because I've been playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition and playing through all of the games all over again with the DLC. And when I look back at the fact that Mass Effect 3 Special Edition was a launch title for the Wii U, and it was heavily crippled, even at launch.
Okay.
For just that individual game, it was heavily crippled. Let's not even include the fact that the first 2 games weren't available on the platform, so you couldn't get all of the context of all the situations to the series unless you played the other games actually at that time you could only play them on the 360. You could play the second one on the PS3, but that was about it. But you still lost a lot of context.
So hold on, I feel as though we've already kind of hit a gridlock here. So if and again, I'm not trying to sound like super like I'm going against somebody problematic. That's not what's happening here. Just a idea exchange, basically. But if you can admit that Mass Effect 2 came out on PS3 but not 1 at that time, then it seems to me more that EA just didn't want to do the port job for 1 and 2. Putting them and this has been an issue with the Mass Effect series for a while. Like, there are only a handful of places where you can play all 3 Mass Effect games without issue, at least during the Wii U era, because Mass Effect, like, as they were pulling 3 in, didn't they just end up throwing that on Origin instead of letting us grab it on Steam, or didn't they end up pulling it from Steam at one point as well? Like, that series in general has a really weird history with having fragmented releases. But Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3 both made it to PS3. But if Mass Effect 1 didn't make it there, then would that mean that the PS3 version was trying to be crippled as well? I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, Mass Effect... What EA did with Mass Effect is not necessarily reflective of what Nintendo wants for their system as a whole, because EA is not a first-party developer. They're a third-party developer.
Because you couldn't do everything, and then there were just some events that couldn't happen because there was no build-up from the prior games to make that available. This game launched with the From Ashes DLC as well as the extended content that was added in when everybody got upset about the way the endings worked.
Okay.
So the game launched crippled. And there was a second DLC that came out before this game launched that was never made available on the Wii U. And then there was 2 other DLCs that were never made available for the Wii U version of this game.
So I am going to pause for a second because I need to point something out. This has been an issue on Nintendo consoles for a very long time, having gimped versions or smaller versions of games that exist in more expanded forms on other consoles. Resident Evil 4, for example, never got an expanded version on the GameCube, despite it being its launch platform, but the PS2 version of the game ended up having more content. The Wii, in general, the Wii version of Modern Warfare, World at War, Call of Duty 3, all of these versions of those games were severely gimped compared to their counterparts. Modern Warfare wasn't as bad because it had the liberty of coming out several years after the original Modern Warfare release. But even when we got Call of Duty Black Ops on the Wii, like, Black Ops Zombies only ever had 1 map on the Wii. None of the DLC that was available on the other consoles made it over to the Wii version of that game, despite us having an identical campaign, which was not the case for World at War. However, the Wii was one of Nintendo's most successful consoles. What you seem to be doing is taking the individual failures of third-party companies when it comes to the types of games or the ways in which they've ported games to the console, and using that as an anecdotal metric to measure the plans for the console. This is a bit of a logical leap. You can't take the failures of a third-party company and use it as a measuring stick for the plans of the first-party developer on the platform. You need to look at what the first-party developer was putting on the platform, the advertising they were using for the platform, and the way in which it was received and then responded to after that point, all from the first-party developer. You also need to see how the first-party developer is interacting with third-party developers. One of the biggest issues we had on the N64 was there was a third-party developer that they basically screwed over. Lots of them, because they didn't have a disc-based system. As a result, a lot of RPG developers couldn't do things on the N64. The GameCube ran into similar issues with its similarly restrictive tiny disc format. Nintendo also had issues like this is something that goes back to like Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo. We got a super censored version of Mortal Kombat, and the Sega Genesis got an uncensored, even if it was graphically inferior version. Those are decisions that are between the third-party developer and Nintendo, and you can trace those. If you can't put a link, though, between EA's decisions with the Wii U version of Mass Effect and Nintendo and their dealings with EA at that point, then this particular point won't ever actually hold water.
For no reason. You can't really use sales early on at that early of a period because all of that stuff came out well before the Wii U had a chance to hit a stride. So you couldn't use sales to justify that. So
you can, though. You don't have... So some consoles have to hit a stride in order to, like, functionally have a user base. The PlayStation 3 is a good example of this. It didn't sell well in the beginning, and it had a very, like, gatekeepy price tag. But over time, the PlayStation 3 ended up having better sales overall and better reception. Despite the Xbox 360 and the Wii both outselling it in the end, it still ended up making it into more homes the longer it was around. Whereas, conversely, the Wii did not have to hit a stride. But the Wii sales did end up diminishing over time as the novelty of motion control wore off. Anti-Pretzel also, thank you very much for the 45 bits. The Wii... I mean, this is a point that I was going to make before. The Wii U was poorly advertised. It had limited power compared to the competition. Nintendo did what they could, and EA had to work with the restrictions of the system. So, I mean, this is where I could probably point this out. Let's talk about the environment that the Wii U released in. So what people wanted was a console that did not use the motion control gimmicks of the Wii and had HD capabilities and had a robust online system. The Wii U technically had all of these things. The gamepad may look gimmicky. Also, V2 resuming. Thank you very much for the oh well. The gamepad may look gimmicky, but if you ever played with the Wii U gamepad, it feels as comfortable as a standard controller, especially after the first, I don't know, 10 minutes you hold it. Like, as soon as you wrap your hands around that controller, it feels like it is made very properly for comfortable long-time gameplay. Some individual games, especially early on, had gimmicks with it, like the Call of Duty game we got on the Wii U shortly after that. I think Black Ops 2 had gimmicks with it, with a sniper rifle and other things. I know Batman Arkham City had gimmicks with the Wii U gamepad as well. But we run into the issue where gamers technically got what they wanted. The Wii U had a very robust online system. Some games did not do very well on it. Smash Brothers did not do very well on it, but other games ended up doing perfectly fine on it, like Mario Kart and Monster Hunter, with very good online systems. We even had online chat rooms on there as well. But the Wii U had a weaker tri-core processor compared to the other consoles on the market. The Wii U was basically playing like a souped-up Xbox 360, while the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were doing their powerhouse numbers instead. And yeah, I miss Miiverse too. Can we get Fs in the chat for Miiverse? Sorry, I loved Miiverse. I really did. But at the end of the day, the Wii U released as an underpowered console that had the stigma of the Wii. Most of your casual gaming market did not want, and when I say casual gaming market, I mean your people who would regularly play games with controllers, but were not interested in the motion games of the Wii. The Wii brought in non-gamers to play games, and that is an astounding thing. But most of your casual gaming demographic, they were on the Xbox 360 around that time. They had Wiis because it was the most ubiquitous system of the time. But if you look at the Wii U, the advertising for it made it seem almost like it was an extension of the Wii. They made it seem like, oh, look at all the neat things the gamepad can do. But a lot of gamers didn't want neat things with the gamepad anymore. They just wanted a good system. A system with first-party Nintendo games usually, but a good system nonetheless. And at the end of the day, while the Wii U was that system, I still have my Wii U today. 2 of them in my house right now. The marketing for the Wii U was a cataclysmic failure. The online system for the Wii U, while being very good in its own right, was not advertised in such a significant way that anybody even remembered what it was. The Wii U had a better voice chat system than... Hell, the Wii had a better voice chat system than the Switch, but the Wii U had a better voice chat system than even the Switch has as of right now. Monster Hunter Tri Online had voice chat in random lobbies, and that's just not something you get with mostly anything on the Switch at all. Ultimately, though, I think it was Nintendo that was the biggest issue here. Do I think that it was on purpose? No, I don't think a company makes a product for the purpose of failure. And I don't think the Switch released as early as it did because they desperately wanted to get their new console out the door. I think it was more they realized they were losing so much steam with the Wii U. But that's just my thoughts. If you look at the gaming environment around the time the Wii U came out, it was not very healthy for Nintendo fans for the longest time. It would take us 6 to 10 months to get a game out on our console that had been out on other consoles for longer, and the types of games we would get would be either ports of games from last generation, from the PS3 and Xbox 360, or they would be somewhat scaled down versions of games from the current gen. It wasn't until the Switch that we started getting serious downscaled ports again like we used to get with the N64. Doom on the Switch is functionally like running RE2 on the N64. It's a game that people didn't think could be ran on the hardware, and yet it can be done. But I guess I'm getting in the weeds. My biggest point is that I don't think Nintendo did that on purpose. I think they just made a lot of mistakes. They thought they could bring the Wii crowd in to play the Wii U. The Wii U, functionally, was what a gamer, a standard, like, casual, or even a hardcore gamer would want. But there's a lot of things that were barring its way. The gamepad costed $100, and whether or not you needed multiple gamepads or you would be allowed to use other controllers was not very well communicated. Nintendo really did not know how to market that system. It feels like a system trapped between 2 audiences, trapped between 2 generations of gaming, and trapped between 2 types of gamer.
At this point, you're looking at the companies intentionally crippling one version of the game for no reason.
So, if we're talking about Mass Effect 3, we're back on this one again. I don't know if I would say EA intentionally crippled for no reason. It could be sales figures. Like, actually, I am curious here. Let me look up real quick. Sales figures for Mass Effect 3 Wii U. Let's take a look here at VG charts. Let's see what we can find. Sales history... That is not a lot. That is not a lot. It did not sell well here at all. Like, let's compare that to... Let's do Mass Effect 3 Let's do a comparison. Let's look at the Xbox 360 version of the game instead. Look at that difference. Look at that difference. The Xbox 360 version of Mass Effect 3 sold millions, 3.4 million units. The Wii U version couldn't even crack 500,000. This isn't intentionally crippling a game for the purpose of crippling a console. This is reallocating resources away from a console where your install base is so microscopic that the gains are minimal. And of course, an argument can be made that these numbers are as low as they are because the first two Mass Effects were not available on the system. But as a comparison, let's go and look at Mass Effect 2 PS3 VG charts. Mass Effect 1 wasn't available. So what are the sales for Mass Effect 2? We have 1.46 million for Mass Effect 2 compared to VG charts Xbox 360. Compared to 3. Okay, so they got 1.5 million on the PS3, but that is still larger. It's worth it to invest in this install base. This install base cares about your stuff. This install base cares about your stuff. This install base does not care about your game. Said how many Nintendo fans are also Mass Effect fans? I don't have a way to get numbers for that. All I can do is pull up the individual sales for the individual games. While I don't agree with a company abandoning a particular console's release for a game, from a business perspective, it does make sense. And I hate that it makes sense. But I think that is the issue. That is the reason you're looking for, more so than to cripple the Wii U.
Sure, the Wii U version of that game had some features that were nice to be able to use that actually enhanced the gameplay of that game. But at the same time, there was so much taken from it. You get an understanding as to why people didn't run to those versions of those games outside of people that just unnecessarily disliked the platform because it wasn't the name brand that they liked.
And I do agree, there is a propensity in gaming culture in general to gravitate towards the platform that you prefer, and it does cause almost a type of xenophobia to platforms that you don't have. Like, here we have an Xbox One that Raz brought to the house. We have 2 Wii U's. We've got a Switch. The one thing we don't have any PlayStation consoles here. Not because I don't like PlayStation, but just we haven't had a reason to get them. We have gaming PCs. Our primary gaming platform is on PC. But I do remember the console wars when I was in high school, and I imagine they are still quite as fervent today as they ever have been were I to step back into a similar demographic. But again, I think this comes down to having a smaller install base. The game doesn't get crippled because the game isn't good. The game doesn't get crippled because the console needs to be killed. The game is crippled as a terrible result of both not having an install base on the platform and not having a way of establishing that base. Like, the Wii U didn't have Mass Effect 1 and 2. Most people would not be buying Mass Effect 3 on the Wii U because they could not carry over their characters from Mass Effect 1 and 2. And that was one of the big gimmicks of the Mass Effect series, was being able to carry over your character through each and every game. So you had one complete story with your version of Commander Shepard. The only way you got to have a semblance of that in Mass Effect 3, if you were playing on the Wii U, was there was about a 10-minute long comic segment that gave you multiple choice questions so that you could kind of build your Commander Shepard based on a loose comic version of the story presented to you. There's like a loose comic of Mass Effect 1 and 2 events to see, like, how would you have responded to these things? Okay, that's your Shepard. Was it a good thing? No, not necessarily. It was an okay compromise for a game that recognized that the first two games would never be on its platform. But is that evidence that they tried to intentionally cripple a platform? I really don't think so.
So, looking back and having hindsight to that, you could really say that the companies were spending their time actually trying to cripple this console specifically. And that's why so many people now are asking for ports of the games that Nintendo made on the Wii U to go over to the Switch, because a lot of people just didn't get it based on a lot of the stuff that was said through gaming media and the gaming press, as well as companies in the gaming industry trying to crap all over this particular platform, even though there really was no reason to do that.
So I do agree there was no good reason to crap over the Wii U. The Wii U was an amazing console in its own right, but it did suffer from limitations. You got to understand, as a comparison, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One at the time that the Wii U was in its heyday were running stronger octa-core processors. This severely limited the kind of games that could be ran on the Wii U with its weaker tri-core processor. At the end of the day, if the console is less powerful, it is harder to develop games for it if you are trying to develop ported games. You can develop bespoke games for a console of any power, and you will just work within the limitations of that console. But if you have a game that physically cannot run on that console, sometimes the effort of downscaling that game will not translate into money for it. And if you want an example of that effort not translating into money, I mean, we have the sales of Mass Effect 3. Granted, there are other factors there involved, of course. I mean, again, it's the third game in a series. It's very hard to argue you should get this one when you're not going to be able to carry over Shepard. But at the end of the day, I've said the end of the day a bunch. I'm kind of dumb. But it was a weaker system. It was scaled to be slightly stronger than the 360 and PS3. And while it could handle some amazing games that looked astounding and ran incredibly well, and even some that didn't run well but were still astounding. I mean, hell, Breath of the Wild is on the system. I don't think it's the third-party developers trying to cripple the Wii U, nor Nintendo trying to cripple the Wii U. Nintendo has a really weird way of doing things when it comes to tech. Their standards are take old tech and find better ways of understanding that old tech rather than relying on new tech. This is the reason why the Wii is literally two GameCubes sandwiched together. This is the reason why the Wii U is powered like an Xbox 360. This is the reason why the Switch runs still weaker than an Xbox One and a PS4, and we are a generation ahead of that now. Nintendo takes old hardware and tries to make it better. Microsoft and Sony try to use new hardware to push the boundaries of the gaming space. They market to two separate types of people. They market to two separate audiences. Whether or not this is good for people individually as gamers, that's a question for history. But at the end, goddamn, I need to stop saying at the end of the day. But the thing is, if a third party wants to cripple a platform, they don't release a gimped version of their game and literally lose money just for the purpose of screwing Nintendo. They just don't port their game to the console. That's what they do. They just go, hey, this game could be good on this console, but we don't like the developer of that console, so they opt not to port it over. The reason that people are so happy about getting Wii U ports on the Switch is not that they are now suddenly realizing just how good a console the Wii U was, even though I agree it was. I think it's more that they're glad that games that were previously on a dead console are coming over to something that they and others will actually play. It was less their excitement about the console and more their excitement about the games. I don't wish any like ill will on the creator of this video. His name is the Game Idea Guy. In fact, actually, because these are interesting ideas to talk about, I would like you guys to go and sub over to his channel. But I do think this is a conversation that I'd be willing to have again at some point about another topic. And if you guys enjoy this kind of content, like I'm experimenting a little bit on Necosaurus. I don't know if I want to focus on video response stuff. I don't know if I want to focus on Magic the Gathering stuff. I don't know if I want to do all of the above and just see what the fuck happens. I don't know. So let me know in the comment section below. But with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Sub if you haven't already. And as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So thank you.